A merchant is traveling through a dangerous area when he's suddenly surrounded by dozens of goblins. All he can do is scream for help, praying for a miracle, and that miracle comes. A group of warriors arrives and wipes out the goblins. One of them warns that if you see one goblin, there are 100 more nearby, so they can't let even one escape. Back in the city, we meet our protagonist, Fate. He's starving while working as a guard. Then he sees the same warriors from before walking by. They're talking about how one of them finally reached level 6 after today's goblin hunt. There were tons of goblins, and they made off with a big haul. They'll cash in and split the rewards. Fate focuses on the goblin hunt part, feeling depressed. That'll never be him. He's useless, hungry all the time, because of his worthless skill, gluttony. He's lucky to even have a job. A while later, a group of holy knights arrives. A trio of siblings. They're arrogant and cruel, always mistreating people and threatening to execute anyone for the smallest mistake, or anything they see as disrespectful. They're also the ones who gave Fate his job, so they show up to check if he's been doing it properly. He tells them he has, so they toss him a few coins as payment. When he bends down to pick them up, one of them steps on his hand, saying he didn't even notice him because he's so filthy. Then Fate's stomach growls, and they get angry. That noisy stomach makes it sound like they don't feed him well. How dare he embarrass their family like that? Who does he owe his livelihood to? They start beating him while mocking him, saying someone with a worthless skill like his only earns money thanks to their generosity. He should be grateful. While being beaten, Fate explains that in this world there are haves and have-nots. What separates them are the skills given by the gods. After taking a harsh beating, another holy knight arrives, a beautiful blonde woman named Roxy. She scolds the siblings, saying that hurting the citizens they're sworn to protect is not what holy knights should do. Guarding the gate is an honorable duty, one that should be their own responsibility. But the siblings argue that it's also their duty to give jobs to the have-nots, so this is just a difference in professional opinion. Then they leave. Roxy checks on Fate and asks if he's okay. She wipes the blood from his face and tells him that they're comrades when it comes to guarding the gate. This is how a true holy knight should act. Then she says it's time for her shift to begin and tells him to rest. Before he leaves, she tells him that if this kind of thing happens again, he needs to tell her. Later, Fate goes to a bar to get something to eat. He keeps thinking about what Lady Roxy said, but knowing those siblings, there's no telling what they might do to her. He can't drag her into his problems. The bartender, seeing Fate's injuries, warns him that if they keep beating him like this, he'll end up like the last guy, dead. He says he'll pray that doesn't happen. After leaving the bar, Fate's stomach growls again. He wishes he had been born with a better skill. He's not asking to be a holy knight. He'd settle for being a warrior, a merchant, or even a craftsman. But things are what they are. When you're born with nothing, you're stuck as a loser. Just then, he spots some thieves sneaking along the city walls. He immediately goes to inform Roxy. She says she needs to capture the thieves and asks him to take over her post at the gate. Fate can only hear the sounds of battle until one thief, who seems to have escaped, shows up in front of him. After hesitating between running away or facing the bandit, he decides to fight and kills him. At that moment, he hears a voice saying that his gluttony skill has activated. His stats begin to rise, and the skills Identify and Telepathy are added. Before he can ask what's going on, Roxy comes running to check if he's okay. She grabs his hand and asks if he's hurt, but Fate is more concerned about suddenly hearing her thoughts. The voice in his head stops once she lets go of his hand. Fate tries to tell Roxy she can take credit for everything, but she insists that without him, she would have failed her duty. She wants to show her gratitude and offers him a chance to work for her family. Does he really plan to keep serving those siblings until it kills him? He doesn't need to worry about them. His future is his to decide. Fate doesn't have to think long. A future where he's treated like trash by those three, or one where he works for Lady Roxy. He replies that it would be an honor to serve under her. Back home, Fate checks his stats and sees that they've reached triple digits. He also notices the telepathy skill and realizes that's how he heard Roxy's thoughts earlier. With numbers like that, he might actually be able to fight monsters. So the next day, he goes looking for a sword. It's been 5 years since he came to the royal capital, and all he's managed to save is 2 silver coins. The seller tells him that's only enough for the junk weapons in the barrel. Fate uses his Identify skill to check them one by one. They're all trash until he picks up a sword that somehow talks to him. His skill identifies it as greed, one-handed sword. The sword speaks again, saying it will make things worth his while and calls him gluttony. Fate asks how it knows about that, and the sword says they have a lot in common. So Fate decides to buy it. Meanwhile, the siblings are talking about some rumors they've heard. Apparently, Roxy is trying to hire Fate into her household without even asking them first. They say they should teach her what happens when someone defies their family. But the oldest sibling says there's no need to bother. There's no shortage of replacements for Fate, so it's not worth the trouble. Both their family and Roxy's are part of the 5 great families that support the kingdom, and there's no reason to make things complicated right now. Besides, he's more interested in his own studies at the moment, specifically the study of how to become immortal. After that, Fate heads to the meadows to hunt monsters. He finds dozens of goblins and kills them all. His gluttony skill keeps activating non-stop, and his stats are now close to reaching 4 digits. The sword points out that he's probably full now, right? That's when Fate realizes his stomach hasn't growled once all day, something that's never happened before. But he thought people were born with the only skills they'd ever have. The sword says he can thank gluttony for that. Normally, your stats go up through battle experience, but gluttony steals stats and skills instead without gaining any experience. That's why he's still level 1. But gluttony is also a skill that defies divine law, so he must keep it secret. Fate says that in that case, it's better for him to fight alone. But the sword reminds him that he's not alone anymore. He has it now. As Fate tries to leave, the sword tells him to collect the goblin ears so he can get paid. Back in the city, Fate says that 38 goblins earn him 3 silver and 80 bronze coins, enough for meat with dinner. But the sword insists that its maintenance comes first. Fate should treat it properly and polish it like the treasure it is. Fate laughs and says that for a sword, it sure has a high opinion of itself. The sword proudly replies that it didn't get the name Greed by accident. While they keep arguing, they bump into a man dragging a little girl by the hand. During the collision, Fate accidentally touches the girl and hears her thoughts. She's begging for help. Fate tries to check the man's skills before attacking, but the sword tells him the man is using the Conceal skill, which hides his abilities even from Fate's Identify skill. There's no way to know what the man is capable of. Even so, Fate can't just stand by and do nothing. Meanwhile, the man tells the girl she should be happy. There's a place where even worthless trash like her can serve a purpose. She's going to be a toy for the Holy Knights, and isn't that great? Fate grips his sword, ready to attack, but the sword warns him one last time, asking if he's sure. That guy looks tough, and this is his last chance to back out. But Fate says that now that he finally has some power, if someone is suffering right in front of him, he wants to help them. The story continues at an orphanage where a nun is teaching the children about the history of their world. She explains that a being called Holy Lapis created everything and, before leaving, gave humans special powers known as skills. One of the children sits in front of his meal but does not feel like eating. He thinks about how unfair this holy system is. He watches other people, such as holy knights and famous warriors, who have amazing powers that make them better than everyone else in society. In contrast, he is stuck with a skill that he sees as completely useless. He suspects that his lack of power is the reason his parents left him when he was a baby. He misses the ancient times the nuns talk about, the days before skills, stats, and monsters existed. In those times, Holy Lapis protected the world directly, and everyone was equal. Meanwhile, the other nuns at the orphanage are searching for a missing girl named Sahara. This is the girl Fate is planning to save. He is moved by a sense of justice that the criminals find funny, but he is no longer the helpless boy he used to be. Fate knows he must get the girl to safety, even though the kidnapper is very sure he is stronger. Inside his mind, the talking sword, Greed, speaks to him and gives him advice on how to fight. Greed notices that the kidnapper does not think much of Fate, and they decide to use that arrogance to their advantage. Fate follows the sword's instructions and knocks down heavy boxes to create an opening. The fight gets more intense when the kidnapper reveals a special move called Sharp Edge. Greed tells Fate to strike the enemy's weapon directly. Fate follows the order and succeeds, breaking the man's sword. With the kidnapper defeated, Fate demands to know who hired him. The man eventually talks and reveals that a man named Hado is behind the kidnapping. Hado is one of Fate's old bosses who treated him very badly in the past. Once Sahara is safe, the tension goes away, but Fate's constant hunger returns. He sees that Sahara is hungry too, so he offers to buy her some food. He buys 2 meat skewers and gives one to the girl, warning her that it is hot. Sahara admits she has never tasted meat before. Seeing her joy, Fate gives her his portion as well, and she happily accepts it. After that, Fate takes the girl back to the orphanage where a nun meets them. Both the nun and Sahara thank Fate from the bottom of their hearts. Fate is very moved because he does not think anyone has ever thanked him before. He explains to Sahara that his skill is seen as a waste and only makes his stomach growl. He gives her a piece of advice he values. He tells her that no matter how hard life gets, if she can find a way to laugh, she will eventually be happy. It was his father who gave him that same advice years ago, and those words helped him survive his hardest times. As he leaves the orphanage, Fate realizes that his skill, gluttony, has changed him again. He checks his stats and sees that he has taken the one-handed sword technique from the kidnapper. Greed explains that these kinds of skills allow him to use special moves, like hitting twice in a single strike. Fate feels humble, realizing he only survived the fight because of luck and the secret power of his skill. He decides to become strong enough to win without needing luck. That same night, sad news spreads through the town. A respected knight named Mason, who was responsible for keeping the meaner knights in line, has been killed by a dragon in a far-off land. The people worry about the future of his family and whether Roxy, his daughter, can keep things under control. They especially worry about the cruel knight siblings who might cause trouble. Fate, not knowing how serious the news is, gets ready for his first day of work at Roxy's house. He panics when he realizes he is wearing old, dirty clothes because he forgot to buy new ones. Luckily, he finds time to buy proper clothes and makes his way to the rich district. He is amazed by how big and wealthy the area is. He meets Roxy, who has been waiting for him. She is dressed in beautiful clothes, and her beauty leaves Fate unable to speak for a moment. She notices that Fate looks much better in his new clothes and leads him into the house. Their first stop is a grave. Roxy introduces Fate to her late father and explains that his whole team was killed by a dragon that had been sleeping for 1,000 years. Fate is impressed by Roxy's strength. Even though she is sad about her father and has the heavy duty of leading her family, she is still looking out for him. She asks if he will help her make the house a happy place again, and Fate seriously promises to help her. However, a new problem appears when Fate meets Haru, the head maid. Haru is very strict and tells Fate he must behave properly like a servant of a noble house. Fate tries to learn, but his hunger is a constant distraction. During a meal, he eats so fast that the other servants are shocked and wonder if he is just growing quickly. Since he has not eaten meat in 5 years, he can barely control his reaction to the food. After a week of working, Fate's hunger becomes unbearable. While Roxy is talking to him and calling him Faye, a nickname his own father used, Fate starts to lose his focus. The hunger is no longer a small pain. It is a violent force that makes him pass out. He is taken to his room, and Roxy leaves a note saying he should take the next day off to rest. When Fate wakes up, he asks Greed what is happening to him. Greed tells him the scary truth. There is no going back now. Because his gluttony skill has tasted human souls, normal food will never satisfy him again. The more Fate eats, the stronger he gets, but the more he will want. If he does not feed the skill with souls, he will either starve or lose his mind and start attacking people like a monster. Greed tells him that when his hunger gets too strong, his eyes will turn red. This is called a hunger boost. Driven by a desperate need, Fate goes out at night to hunt. His eyes glow red, and his senses become much stronger. He can track prey by smell and see perfectly in the dark. He finds a group of goblins who are too scared to move because of the scary vibe he gives off. He kills them, but their souls are not enough to fill the void in his stomach. Greed suggests they go to the forest for better prey. Eventually, Fate finds a goblin king. He uses his identify skill and sees that the monster can heal its own wounds. Fate decides he wants that power. Despite the monster's size and its huge club, Fate uses sneakiness to get close. He dodges the king's heavy swings and defeats the monster with one final strike. As his skill activates, Fate feels a huge surge of power. He takes the monster's stats and the healing skill. He is tired, but glad the hunger is finally gone. Greed then makes a surprising offer. If Fate gives up all the power he just gained, Greed can change into a new form. Fate is not sure about losing his power, but Greed warns him that he must do this to keep using the sword. Fate realizes that Greed is his only true partner, so he agrees. He feels his strength leave him as Greed turns into a black magic bow. To test it, Fate pulls the string. An arrow made of energy appears on its own, and the bow helps him aim. He fires at a goblin far away and hits it perfectly. After the hunt, Fate takes the ears of the Goblin King and leaves them at the orphanage so the nuns can sell them to buy food for a while. The next day begins with a surprise for Fate as he goes about his duties. He encounters a person who looks like a commoner, only to realize it is actually Lady Roxy in a clever disguise. She is startled by his presence but quickly explains that she is heading into town for a secret inspection. She warns him not to tell anyone, especially the strict headmaid Haru, who would surely disapprove of her behavior. Instead of letting Fate return to his normal work, Roxy decides on a whim to assign him a top-secret mission. She orders him to act as her escort for the day, and they quickly head out into the city together. As they walk through the streets, Fate struggles to keep up with her excitement. He accidentally calls her by her title, which she quickly corrects. She tells him that for the day, she is simply a girl named Lexi. She notices that Fate is carrying a sword and asks to see it, which makes him nervous. Fate knows that a person with a supposedly worthless skill like his shouldn't have such a weapon. He is also terrified of her finding out the dark secret of his gluttony skill, that he must consume souls or risk becoming a monster that attacks everyone in sight. Greed, the sentient sword, speaks to Fate in his mind, telling him to relax. Roxy looks at the sword and notes that it needs some care, promising to introduce him to her family's blacksmith later. The two arrive at a market where Roxy is delighted by some fresh grapes. The merchant explains that they come from the Hart family vineyard. Roxy almost gives away her identity by saying they are grown at home, but Fate quickly steps in to cover for her. He lies and says she has a relative who works for the Hart family. Roxy is impressed by his quick thinking and thanks him. However, the fun moment is interrupted by the arrival of several holy knights. Since the death of Sir Mason, even the lower-ranking holy knights have become arrogant and rude to the common people. They begin to bully Fate for his stomach growling. Roxy intervenes and tells the knight to stop, but of course he asks who she is to dare talk back to a holy knight. The people around start saying she looks like Lady Roxy, so Greed suggests a plan to Fate. They should pretend to be a couple and act very close so that no one will believe she is the noble Lady Roxy. Fate is embarrassed but goes along with it, pretending to argue with her like a boyfriend. Everyone around is fooled, believing that no noble would ever act so common. Afterward, Roxy is flustered and admits she has never linked arms with a boy before. As they continue their walk, they stop by a merchant selling ores and gems. Fate uses his identify skill to see which stones have hidden gems inside. He watches Roxy and realizes that when she's away from her duties, she looks like a normal, happy girl. However, her true reason for being out soon becomes clear. She asks Fate to take her to a place where warriors gather because she is investigating a wandering monster that has been killing goblins and donating their ears to an orphanage. Fate is shocked and realizes that he is the monster she is looking for. They go to a tavern where Fate used to spend time. The barkeep is surprised to see Fate alive, and even more surprised that he has a girlfriend. Fate tries to correct him, but he is too afraid of offending Roxy. While there, they listen to the local rumors. Some warriors think the monster is a lich or a ghost. The news is even more worrying because the knights are planning a hunt to kill this monster. Fate knows that if Roxy joins the hunt and finds him, it will lead to a terrible situation. While Fate and Roxy are sitting in the tavern, a group of warriors walks in. They call the place a dump, but they decide to stay and order food and drinks anyway. As they wait, one of the warriors notices Roxy and tells her to come over and have some fun with them. Roxy stands up and stops them with a move so fast and powerful that only a holy knight could perform it. The adventurers are shocked and realize they are in trouble. Roxy reveals her true identity, and the men are terrified when they find out she is Roxy Hart from one of the 5 great families. They beg for their lives and even offer her their money to let them go. Roxy tells them to put their money away. She feels a deep sense of sadness and shame because the people she is supposed to protect view her with such fear. She explains that holy knights exist to protect the public, not to bully them. She shares her father's dream of a world where knights and commoners can laugh together, and she promises to keep working until that dream comes true. After leaving the tavern, Roxy thanks Fate for helping her learn more about the wandering monster. Fate wonders why she wasn't told about the hunt for the creature. She replies that the Vlaric family is in charge of the mission and purposefully ignored her. Suddenly, they hear a child's voice crying out in pain. They rush toward the sound and find Hado Vlaric holding a young boy very roughly. Roxy demands that Hado release the child. Hado and his sister claim they are simply taking a lost child into their protection. But Roxy tells Fate to take the boy from them anyways, and he does. After a few cruel words, the Vlarics leave, telling Fate to act like the trash he is. The boy says he can't find his mother, so Fate and Roxy decide to help him search. As Fate watches Roxy comfort the child, he has a sudden memory. He remembers being lost in the capital 5 years ago, right after his father died. A kind, holy knight had looked after him back then too. Though we can see that the knight was a younger Roxy with a different haircut, Fate doesn't make the connection yet. He simply wonders what happened to that person. Eventually, they find the boy's mother, and the family is happily reunited. Fate realizes it is getting late and worries they will be in trouble for being out so long. Roxy tells him not to worry and says that if they get in trouble, they will face it together. Back at home, Fate asks Greed if there is any way to hunt monsters without Roxy knowing it is him. Greed replies that there is a mask capable of changing how other people see the wearer. It works by warping the perception of anyone who looks at Fate, making him appear like a completely different person. Fate is excited by the idea and realizes it is the perfect solution. Soldiers stand in the middle of a battlefield, covered in the remains of dead goblins. They look at Fate, who is standing on top of a massive pile of the monsters he has slain. The soldiers realize that this mysterious warrior has managed to beat them to the hunt once again. They wonder when the Holy Knights will finally do something about this individual. Terrified, the men scream for everyone to run, identifying Fate as the lich known as Corpse. Fate hears the name and thinks to himself that he actually likes being called a warrior named Corpse. Greed speaks to him and asks if he is finished with his work. Fate explains that he wants to increase his statistics as much as possible before the Holy Knights eventually come looking for him. Later, Fate is back in his role as a servant when Roxy approaches him. She tells him that she has a secret mission for him to complete. Fate asks if this is going to be another inspection like before. Roxy leads him away from the city and out into the countryside. Eventually, they reach a point where they can see a vast stretch of land. Roxy explains that the beautiful territory belongs to the Hart family. Fate looks at the vineyard and asks if the secret mission involves harvesting grapes. Roxy reminds him of the grapes they saw for sale at the market earlier. She tells him that she simply wanted him to see where they grow up close. Roxy takes Fate to the family mansion to meet her mother, Aisha Hart. As they arrive, Aisha welcomes her daughter back. Roxy calls out to her mother and tells her that she did not need to come outside to greet them. Aisha explains that she is feeling better than she usually does today. Roxy urges her mother not to overexert herself before Aisha notices Fate standing nearby. Roxy introduces Fate as a servant she has hired and says she brought him along to introduce him to the family. Fate introduces himself. Aisha tells him it is very nice to meet him and says he is welcome at their home. Fate thanks her sincerely. Aisha then looks at Fate and asks him directly if he likes her daughter. This question catches both Fate and Roxy off guard. Roxy shouts at her mother, asking why she would ever ask such a thing. Aisha calmly explains that she is just curious about his opinion of her daughter since she is his employer. Fate realizes that her intentions were innocent, but he admits to himself that the question scared him. Roxy tells her mother that she should have just said that from the beginning. Fate looks at Aisha and tells her that he cares a great deal for Lady Roxy. He goes even further, stating that if he were allowed to, he would like to serve her until the very end of his life. Aisha is delighted by this answer, but Roxy becomes so embarrassed that she runs inside the mansion, shouting that she needs to go rest in her room for a bit. Fate is left confused and wonders if he said something wrong. Aisha tells him that Roxy always runs away whenever things become uncomfortable for her. She says that her daughter hasn't changed at all since she was a little girl. Aisha recalls that Roxy used to be a crybaby who would throw a fit if she even saw a bug. She admits that she still finds it hard to believe her little girl grew up to be a holy knight. She worries that Roxy is pushing herself too hard, especially after losing her father and suddenly having to become the head of the house. Fate reassures the mother, telling her that Roxy is a fine holy knight and that the people have a lot of faith in how she performs her duties. Inside the house, Roxy looks at a photograph of herself and her father. She remembers a conversation they had where her father expressed surprise that she wanted to be a holy knight. She told him back then that she wanted to be a knight just like him, someone who could laugh along with the common people. Her father agreed that such a goal was fitting for a member of the Hart family. In the present, Roxy thinks to herself that she still hasn't fulfilled that promise she made to him. Meanwhile, Fate is out in the fields working. Another worker brings him a cup of freshly juiced grapes to help with his fatigue. Fate drinks it and says it is delicious. The worker explains that the lords of the house have personally helped cultivate this land for generations, and everyone on the property is proud of the flavor they have created. Fate asks if this includes Sir Mason, who died in Gallia. The worker confirms this and mentions that it must be very hard for Lady Roxy. He says they weren't sure if she would show up this year, but they are grateful that she did. Fate asks if she helps with the harvest every year. The worker explains that helping with the harvest is only part of it. She also comes to hunt the monsters that show up during this time of year to look for food. He says the monsters they are dealing with are kobolds. Suddenly, Fate's stomach growls loudly. The worker laughs and says it makes sense that he is hungry after working so hard. However, Greed tells Fate that after eating so many goblins, his gluttony skill is now hungering for different types of souls. Roxy eventually comes to see Fate and tells him to head back to the mansion without her because she still has things to do. On his way back to the house, Fate encounters a woman carrying a massive axe. He notices that her eyes look just like his. The woman speaks to him, asking if he is listening. Fate snaps out of his thoughts and asks if she needs something. The woman tells him that she is too early. She explains that she came to deal with the kobolds, but she decides that Fate can have them instead. She tells him that he now owes her one and promises that they will meet again. Fate asks Greed who the woman was, but Greed claims he does not know. Fate is suspicious because Greed usually talks constantly, but has suddenly become very quiet. Greed gets defensive, insisting that there are things even he doesn't know. Roxy catches up with Fate and asks him to help carry some of the grapes she gathered. She mentions that she also saw the woman and believes she is a Galian. Fate mentions that he thought Gallia was destroyed. Roxy explains that 4,000 years ago, Gallia was a massive military power, but a surge in monsters caused the nation to collapse. She assumes there must be some survivors, though she admits she has never seen such a full-blooded Galian before. Fate asks if she will be okay hunting the monsters on her own. Roxy tells him she won't be alone because the warriors who work the land will be with her, and she reminds him that she is a holy knight. The next day, they find that the grape farm has been destroyed by the beasts. Fate and Roxy's men watch a pack of kobolds from a distance. Roxy prepares to move in, but then a massive, terrifying monster appears. No one has ever seen a creature of that size before. Greed warns Fate that his mouth is watering just by looking at it and tells him that time is running out. Fate uses his Identify skill and sees that the monster is a level 50 beast known as the Bringer of Lamentation. Its stats are incredibly high, and it possesses a skill called Brawl. Greed explains that it is a crowned beast, a powerful monster born from a long period of accumulated aggression. The farm workers are terrified, saying they don't stand a chance against the monster. Roxy reassures them, promising to slay the beast herself to protect the land. She orders the workers to get to safety. However, Greed tells Fate that the monster is too much for a young holy knight to handle alone. Fate knows that a level 50 monster is also too much for him at his current level, but he refuses to let Roxy die. He decides they are going to fight. That night, Fate puts on his mask and goes out to the field. Greed teases him about playing the hero again. Fate sees that there are kobold warriors and juniors surrounding the crowned beast. He tells Greed that he is going to fight like a glutton. He uses Greed in both bow and sword forms to slaughter the kobolds one by one. Each time he kills one, his gluttony skill activates, and he gains new abilities and stat boosts, including two-handed sword technique, vitality boost, and health regen. When only the boss is left, Fate fires magical arrows at it, but the monster catches them in its hands. Greed tells him they have to get close and carve the monster up. As they engage, the boss uses a rare art from its brawl skill called Ruinous Strike, which sends Fate flying. He hits the ground and lies still, but it is a trick to lure the monster in. When the boss approaches, Fate strikes. Greed tells him he can now use the first-level hidden art called Bloody Ptarmigan, but it will cost 10% of Fate's current stats. Fate agrees, and fires a massive, destructive blast that completely decimates the boss and carves a tunnel into the nearby mountain. After the battle, Fate realizes that his new health regen skill has already healed his injuries. He tells Greed that the attack was overkill, but suddenly the gluttony skill activates again from devouring the boss's soul. Fate begins to enter a frenzy. Greed warns him that he is overloaded because he devoured a high-quality soul for the first time. He tells Fate to hold it in, or the state will be even worse than starvation. Fate eventually collapses to the ground. The next day, Roxy and her men find the destruction and the corpses. They are puzzled, wondering who could have done such a thing. Back at the mansion, Roxy discusses the event with her mother during a meal. Roxy suggests it might have been the Galian girl they saw earlier. She is relieved that the land is safe and says they should return to the capital. Privately, Aisha speaks with Fate. She asks him to stay by Roxy's side and support her. Fate tries to say that someone like him couldn't possibly do that, but Aisha tells him she isn't asking for prestige or strength. She says his value is in his heart and his desire to help. She reveals that she was of common birth with no skills, but was still able to support her husband. Finally, she tells Fate that she is not long for this world and asks him to support Roxy in her place. Back in the city, Fate goes out to hunt at night, but killing goblins no longer satisfies his hunger. Greed explains that goblins won't cut it anymore and tells Fate he needs to decide what to do next. While at a tavern, Fate overhears people talking about Hado. They say Hado is joining the hunt for corpse to get some easy glory, while someone else is going on an expedition to Gallia. The people worry that the worst-case scenario will come true. Later that day, Roxy visits her father's grave. She says that she has been assigned to the expedition to Gallia. Fate appears and begs her not to go, warning her that she might not come back, but Roxy remains firm in her decision. Meanwhile, the Vlerick siblings are celebrating. They are glad to be rid of Roxy, who they see as a nuisance. While Hado stays behind to hunt corpse, Raphael and the other sibling prepare to go to Tenburn to continue their research into immortality. Fate realizes he cannot overturn the official orders, but he decides he will no longer let the Vlericks cause suffering. That night, Hado and Fate, in his corpse persona, finally come face to face. The night is heavy with tension, as Hado Vlerick's men step forward, eager to prove their worth by taking down the mysterious warrior known as Corpse. Hado gives them permission, and the soldiers charge at Fate with shouts of confidence. However, to Fate's eyes, their movements are agonizingly slow. Without breaking a sweat, Fate utilizes the ruinous strike ability he recently acquired. He pummels the volunteers with such overwhelming force and speed that the remaining soldiers lose their nerve. They scream for mercy and flee into the darkness, leaving their leader behind. Hado is consumed by a blinding rage, both at his men's cowardice and at the masked figure before him. He screams that Fate is nothing but a monster and vows that he will not be made a fool. In response, Fate removes his mask, revealing his true identity. Hado is frozen in shock, unable to comprehend how a person he considers trash could possess such power. Fate remains cold and silent, offering no explanations to the man who once tormented him. Desperate to reclaim his sense of superiority, Hado screams about his status as the second son of the Vlerick family and a holy knight. Fate simply challenges him to show off the holy powers he is so proud of. Fate uses his identification magic to scan Hado, noting his holy sword technique and high-strength boosts. He wonders how someone as cruel and petty as Hado was ever chosen for such a prestigious skill. He asks Greed if a black sword can shatter a holy blade. Greed responds with arrogant confidence, stating that a mass-produced artificial holy sword stands no chance against him. Hado, blinded by his own ego, mocks Fate for standing within range and prepares his ultimate attack. He calls Fate an idiot and unleashes the Grand Cross, a burst of holy light intended to destroy anything in its path. The spell is impressive to look at, but it is far too slow for someone with Fate's agility. He vanishes from Hado's line of sight and reappears directly behind the knight, remarking on how long the spell takes to deploy. With a single, powerful swing of Greed, Fate shatters the holy sword as if it were made of glass. Hado stares in horror at the broken hilt in his hand, unable to believe his weapon is gone. Fate tosses the broken shards at Hado's feet and mocks him, telling him to pick them up. He tells the trembling knight that his behavior is pathetic and that he needs to be taught a lesson in discipline, throwing Hado's own cruel words back at him. Fate proceeds to thrash Hado until the knight is a bloody, broken mess. Hado begs for his life, but Fate shows no mercy. He reminds Hado of all the people he treated like insects and points out that Roxy Hart is now heading into a death trap in Gallia because of people like him. Fate activates the bloody ptarmigan attack, the same devastating blast he used on the crowned beast. The explosion leaves Hado limbless and dying. Before delivering the final blow, Fate asks about Roxy. Hado reveals that Roxy actually volunteered for the expedition during a meeting of the Holy Knights, claiming she would gladly give her life to save even one citizen. Fate realizes that such a selfless act is exactly what Roxy would do. Hado tries to bargain one last time, promising to cancel the expedition if Fate spares him, but Fate tells Hado to be quiet, stating that this kill is not for justice, but for his own personal revenge. He plunges his sword into Hado's chest, ending the knight's life. The gluttony skill activates immediately, devouring Hado's soul and surging Fate's stats to incredible new heights. He officially acquires the Holy Sword technique, but he feels disgusted by the idea of being a holy knight. Greed suggests a way to use that power without being tied to the title. He unlocks his second level of power, transforming into a massive black great scythe. Greed explains that the curse within the blade can cut through even the most intangible things. Fate looks at the weapon and wishes it had the power to cut short Roxy's dangerous journey. The following day, a somber atmosphere hangs over the Hart Manor as Roxy prepares to leave for the border. She smiles at her gathered servants, telling them not to look so sad and promising that 3 years will pass quickly. She gives final instructions to her head servant, Haru, who promises to serve the family with honor in her absence. Finally, Roxy turns to Fate. She looks at him with kindness and promises that they will meet again. Fate can only manage to tell her to look after herself as she rides away. Once Roxy is gone, Haru hands Fate a letter of recommendation. He explains that Roxy was worried about Fate's safety until the very end and wanted him to find work in a lord's manor where the Vleriks couldn't reach him. Fate is moved by her kindness, but he refuses the letter. He tells Haru that he has decided to make his own way as a warrior from now on. Greed notes that Fate has finally made up his mind. Fate explains that if he cannot stop Roxy from going to Gallia, he will go there himself to support her from the shadows. Haru gives him his earned wages and severance pay, telling him he will be missed and urging him never to forget the pride of the Hart family. Fate boards a carriage, vowing to protect Roxy with his new power. As Roxy travels toward the border, she addresses the army of volunteers who have joined her. She explains that she has taken her father's place to hunt the divine dragon, a creature that has awoken after 1,000 years of silence. She tells them that she needs their help to defend the capital and its people. Among the crowd is a young, energetic warrior named Miria, who insists on following Roxy wherever she goes. They are joined by a veteran warrior named Mugen, who jokes around with Miria despite the danger. Mugen reveals that he served under Roxy's father, Mason, and wishes to avenge him. He also mentions that his daughter, Rain, is a scholar who asked him to bring back relics from Gallia. Elsewhere, in a quiet laboratory, Rain and another researcher examine the remains of the goblins killed by Fate. They notice that the wounds are not caused by normal weapons or standard fire magic. Rain consults an old book and shows an image of a black bow. She identifies the weapon as one of the weapons of mortal sin, ancient tools capable of manipulating magic at an extreme level. She expresses a deep scientific fascination with these weapons, hoping that she might one day get to see one in person to understand how they expand the potential of human skills. Fate's journey takes him to the trade hub of Tetra, a bustling city of merchants and high-quality goods. He remembers passing through here 5 years ago on his way to the capital. Greed is immediately distracted by the shops, demanding that Fate buy him a scabbard worthy of his new status, perhaps one decorated with rare crystals. Fate ignores his sword's complaining, deciding instead to use some of his severance pay to enjoy a good meal. While at a local restaurant, the atmosphere is ruined by a group of arrogant warriors who are bullying a desperate villager. The man is begging for help because his village is under attack by monsters, but the warriors laugh at the small amount of money he is offering. Fate steps in and physically forces the warriors to leave the man alone. When the bullies flee, Fate looks at the villager and realizes it is Set, a boy from his own childhood home. Set is shocked to see Fate after so many years. A dark memory surfaces in Fate's mind. He remembers how Set used to throw rocks at him and call him a good-for-nothing because of his growling stomach. He recalls the day his father died and how the village elders refused to feed an extra mouth. They had stoned him and exiled him from the village, calling him worthless garbage. Back in the present, Set humbles himself and begs Fate for help, admitting that he knows he is being selfish, but claiming the village needs Fate's strength as a warrior. Greed points out that this is a good opportunity for Fate to satisfy his hunger. Fate agrees to help, noting that while he still resents the people, he still holds precious memories of his father in that village. When they arrive at the village, Set's father, the chief who originally exiled Fate, is not happy to see him. He calls Fate garbage and scolds his son for bringing him back. He tells the villagers that they will find real warriors tomorrow and suggests using Fate as a sacrifice to buy the village some time if the monsters attack tonight. Set later apologizes to Fate for his father's behavior. He explains that he has changed since his daughter was born and realizes his father isn't always right. Fate asks about the monsters, and Set explains that they appeared a month ago and can fly. Greed realizes they are likely dealing with gargoyles, clever pack hunters that use probing attacks to test their prey before swarming them. Inside Set's home, Fate meets Set's young daughter. The little girl is innocent and kind, offering Fate a piece of candy and playing a game of arm wrestling with him. Fate feels a rare moment of peace, but as he eats the food Set provided, his vision begins to blur. He feels an overwhelming wave of exhaustion and collapses onto the table. Set is panicked and confused, asking what happened. His daughter innocently explains that she gave Fate the candy her grandfather had given her. Set realizes with horror that his father was serious about sacrificing Fate and has drugged him to ensure he cannot escape.